This was the highest rated American whiskey at the International Wine and Spirits Competition of 2023. Did it deserve it? Let's find out. My good friend Kevin, he texted me a few days ago and he sent me a picture of this same whiskey, and he said that his local hookup has suggested this to him, and what did I think about it? And I said, I don't need another distillery to chase at this time, so I've been passing on it, but I've heard good things. And you can read in the text here what his thoughts were after a couple of swigs, or maybe 3. Facebook, of course, data mined my text thread with Kevin and pushed on me today an article by Forbes about how this whiskey took top score at the International Wine and Spirits Competition. And while I wasn't looking for a new whiskey to bring home, I couldn't resist after reading that article. So after work today, I did some research, and then I stopped at 5 liquor stores on the way home, because this tied with another whiskey, another American whiskey, for that top score at the competition, the 1792 12-year. At every store I went to, they had the Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series and many other products from Bardstown. At each place, they only had one product by 1792, these small batch. So what I'm saying is that I don't care how good a whiskey you are if I can't buy you. Having said that, I am going to go to Kentucky this week on Tuesday with Scott. I might actually go tomorrow if I don't pick up a shift at work tonight for tomorrow. Maybe I'll just hop on a plane and go to Kentucky tomorrow and get an extra day in. Anyway, if I see a bottle of 1792 12-year there, I'll pick one up. But I don't think I've ever seen one in the Bay here, though I haven't really been hunting that whiskey specifically, but apparently it's not very available. At one of the stores, I talked to the owner, and she said that she had some pretty nice bottles in that store, but she said she had not seen the 1792 12-year in her store for 3 years. So Bardstown for the win. Bardstown Bourbon Company. They opened their doors in 2014, and of course, like all new distilleries, they began by putting out whiskey that was sourced and mixed with their own distillates. Until this year, in 2023, when they came out with the Origin Series, and they have a 6-year bourbon, a wheater, and a rye. This Origin Series, it is all Bardstown Bourbon Company, and it's the first opportunity that they have to display what they can do. And according to the judges from IWSC, they did a pretty awesome job. Let's talk about the specs and stats of this whiskey and then get at it. I think this is the shape of pretty much all of their offerings, the same bottle. Its only distinction is this graphic on the back denoting, I think, what is the main grain in each whiskey and the color of the label. Despite being a fairly plain bottle, I do really like it. I like the graphic, and I like the information on the label. Over here on this side, it's all the legalese, and the only thing interesting really that I can find on this side of the label is that it says it's distilled and aged by Bardstown Bourbon Company. Oftentimes we buy whiskey and we don't even know until we read the side of the label, because it always says on there legally who distilled and where it was aged and bottled. And sometimes we think, well, this company made this whiskey. And then we read the side and it says, of course, Indiana. And I'm not bagging on MGP because I drink a crap ton of MGP and I like it. But so we know this is all Bardstown Bourbon Company, and that's great information. On the front, again, Bardstown Bourbon Company, Origin Series, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 48 ABV, 96 proof. What I really like is on this label here, and we have what I wish that most distilleries would do on their straight whiskeys. On the blends, I get it. If you have multiple mash bills, it's different. But if you have a single mash bill of your whiskey, put it on there. Us whiskey nerds would appreciate that. So we have just the information right here. This was distilled and aged by Bardstown Bourbon Company. It's 6 years old. The mash bill is 60% corn, 36% rye, and 4% malted barley. And this was distilled in the fall of 2016. So I like this label. It is facts, not fluff. And I like this whiskey. It is a high rye bourbon, right up my alley. Okay, let's get it. Cheers. Right off the bat, that's a bold palate. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. And I've not had any Bardstown Bourbon Company products. I haven't had a sip of this. I haven't had an old fashioned made from it or any cocktails. I haven't had a pour out at any bar anywhere, and I haven't had a bottle at my house. And I don't have any friends that I know who have had any of this whiskey except for Kevin, and he says some pretty good things about it. And I have heard some great reviews about it online, and people have been talking about it, and so I've been excited to try it. I was excited to try it, though. I've been looking at these bottles as I go to the store. I see things there all the time that I would like to buy, and I'm pretty much tapped out, and especially knowing that I'm going to Kentucky this week. The store owner that I talked to at St. Pete, she said she went to Kentucky earlier this year, and she bought 50 bottles, and she brought 50 bottles home. I'm like, if I bought 50 bottles home, it would be nuts. I went earlier this year, I bought 11 bottles, and to me that was quite a bit. It's a bright nose, it's lively. I'm even a little bit stuffed up. I just got home from Arizona a couple days ago. I think I picked up a virus maybe in there somewhere. I've been just pounding the Claritin D and the Afrin. I had some Mucinex a couple days ago, just kind of trying to knock it down, but just a little bit congested, but it's still bright enough. I'm just picking up some notes in there. There's definitely some sweetness in there, maybe some mintiness, some citrus. It's just bright and lively, some fruitiness. I do like it. It's not overly complex, and I feel like it's all there and it's available. You just have to sip it or to come approach it, and it's there for the taking. Sometimes I open some whiskeys and I'm like, and I'm not even really catching anything. I'm like, oh, please help me out, or I'm swirling it forever, trying to waken it up or something. But this is just bright. Some nice fruits in there. It's a nice nose. I think I would like to, maybe someday when I'm not super stuffy, I'm not extremely congested, but I can definitely feel it up in there. I think it's a very nice nose. Bright and lively. Those are my two descriptors for it. Again, cheers. Again, bold, some initial heat. Perhaps you would think it's more than 96 proof. Just initial heat and some spice, but it's followed by some sweetness, some fruity sweetness. Some of those classic bourbon notes, some caramel, some oak in there. I like it. It's very approachable, if you will. Perhaps it's perhaps similar to Buffalo Trace, and I'm not saying it's similar to Buffalo Trace, but in the sense as far as the profile goes. But in the sense that if someone tells me they don't like whiskey, but maybe they want to try it, or they've tried a couple and they don't like it, I usually ask them what they tried, and I'll say, okay, well, just try this one. And I'll give them Buffalo Trace. I feel like it's a nice, light, approachable whiskey. Everyone kind of likes it. It has the right amount of sweetness and balance. And I feel like perhaps this isn't the same profile, but it also is the same approachableness I think this would be, it's got enough depth and flavor that if you've been drinking for a while, you'll still appreciate those classic bourbon notes just for their boldness. And if you are new to whiskey, or maybe you think you don't like it, there isn't really anything funky in there. There's not overwhelming amount of heat or alcohol or spice. It's not off-putting in any way. It's a nice balance of sweet and spice. And I think that just about anyone would like this. I think this would be a nice whiskey to give to someone who says they don't like whiskey. Actually, I think in that way, it's very, very similar to what I think Buffalo Trace is. And it's very similar price-wise. I mean, Buffalo Trace, I'm seeing at $26 here in the Bay at most places these days, if you're finding it at retail. And I see it there quite often these days. This was $44.99, I believe, today at Total Wine and More. So a bit more than, again, Buffalo Trace. I don't mean to compare it to Buffalo Trace, but just in the approachableness of it. But a nice approachable whiskey, a nice bright flavors, a bold palate, a nice balance of sweetness and spice. That's my thoughts on Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series 6-year bourbon. It's very, very nice. Yeah, bit of a lingering dry finish with a bit of pepper. I've been catching just some more fruitiness here as I let it sit after a bit of time. As I'm talking, I'm still catching some fruity sweetness there at the very end. I think it is a pretty good whiskey. Now, is this a complex pour? I'm going to say no, but it's a compelling sip. And this, I'm not going to chase the other Bardstown products. At this point, I just have too much. I'm not going to go out and buy the rye. I'm not going to go out and buy the bottled and bond. I'm going to keep it with just this one for the Bardstown Bourbon Company at this time. And I think it has earned a place on my shelf. And I think you should go pick up a bottle today or tomorrow or whenever you watch this video or next time you're at the liquor store. All right, my guys, if you enjoyed the video, like it, it's free. Subscribe to see more of my content. I'm doing both book and whiskey reviews this year. For now, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Turn the pages, my friends, and stay thirsty. Cheers.